Hey guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl. Today we are doing my September reading wrap-up. Okay, so I read 13 books this month. These are the books that I physically read. I listened to, I think, 8 audiobooks. My audiobook wrap-up will be up tomorrow. Before you guys freak out, I did a lot of very, very small kid books this month, so several of them were under 100 pages, so that's why I was able to read so many, and I will just get right into it. So first off, I just want to make a quick note because I've mentioned it in almost every single video. I am following along with Emma Books in her Cassandra Clare Shadowhunters readathon, and in September I did not read a Cassandra Clare Shadowhunters book. The books for September were the Bane Chronicles and the Tales from Shadowhunter Academy. And because I like to read like spooky, creepy books in September and October, and technically like the Shadowhunters are kind of creepy and spooky. There's like demons and fairies and things. I don't know, I just wasn't really in the mood for it, and I didn't feel like it was like super crucial to the readathon. Let me know down below in the comments if I'm wrong. I think I'm gonna skip it for now and like get into them later, and then this month I'm just gonna like jump right into Lady Midnight. But I just want to let you guys know I did DNF the Bane Chronicles, not necessarily permanently, but just because I wanted to get to some other priorities. Okay, so first up, I started out the month with The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. I read the entire trilogy. I didn't get into the Noah Shaw books, but I did read the first 3 books. I read them very quickly. I understand now why these are like so beloved. The writing style is very, very quick pace. There's a lot happening, there's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of like action and adventure, and it's one of those things that you can just read like this. Like I would sit down to read and I would read like 100 pages like super quickly. So this one is a story about a girl who was in an accident, and she's basically kind of trying to remember what happens, and she's having like hallucinations and things that are happening, and her family is like worried about her mental health, and she's seeing and hearing like disturbing things. And so we have a very unreliable narrator because you can't really trust what she's seeing. There are basically trigger warnings for everything in this book, like self-harm and rape and abuse and just everything you could think of, pretty much. Violence, gore. There's trigger warnings for this series. So viewers, they're super sensitive. Just skip it. I did enjoy my time while reading this series. I did think the first book did not scare me really at all. Like I thought it was kind of going to creep me out. It was really just more disturbing than it was like scary and creepy. It did start kind of to get to me later on. Like I was home alone for a couple days, and I kind of like thought I saw someone like over my bed. Like not really, but you know how you get that feeling where you're like, ugh. Like it kind of made me, I don't know, it kind of freaked me out in that way, but not like in a good creepy way. I don't know. It was just, these aren't my favorite type of stories because it's all set in modern times, contemporary, with some paranormal aspects, kind of. And just like modern drama, which I don't like she thinks people are like following her, and then like people try to attack you, and I'm just not big into that. Like if that's happening in like a fantasy setting or like in the past, I am all for it, if that sounds weird. But when it's like in a modern book, I think it's just like too realistic. I just don't like putting those images in my head. I'm kind of big on like what you put out into the universe, and it kind of makes me look over my shoulder a little bit, and I don't really like that aspect. I did give, I think, all of the books 3.5. I might have given one of them 4 stars. I can't remember. They're really enjoyable. They're easy to read through. I didn't think that the unreliable narrator thing was done as well as I was wanting. I read We Were Liars last year, earlier this year, and I loved it. That was a case of the unreliable narrator with the same kind of darker setting that I thought was way more mysterious and like capturing and enjoyable. Now, I will say, and the reason I gave these 3.5, one of them 4 stars, is because I loved the love interest. I think that book 2 has done a disjustice of this series because I've heard mostly bad things about Noah Shaw, the love interest in this story, because I think it's because he smokes. And for me, I was like, ooh, he's gonna be like you know, a bad guy that like treats her really bad and is like rude, and like I kind of like that like rude bad boy thing, but not when it's like, girl, he is treating you like crap, why do you like him? And Noah wasn't like that. Like he would definitely like make fun of her and tease her, and just like she would him, but overall when you look at it, he was like a sweetie pie. Like he was so cute, and I just thought he was very kind, and I really liked that part, and that is the only thing that kept me like reading it, was the romance factor, which was really interesting. And I probably will read the next series because I really did like him. Yeah, enough about that, not a review. I just wanted to give you guys enough information about this particular series because it was my first time reading it. So the first part of the month was really like mediocre for me, which was kind of a bummer. The next book that I read, Doll Bones by Holly Black, and this one was a Newbery Honor Award, so it didn't count for my Newbery Award books, but it has an honor, which is kind of cool. I read Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black last year and absolutely loved it, and I just had this feeling that Holly Black was going to be an author that I loved. This one is about 3 kids, and it's a middle grade book. They play make-believe, and then they kind of have to grow up. They're kind of in that stage where they are getting out of playing like make-believe and pretend, and they kind of have to grow out of it. And so there are some creepy, mysterious things that happen because there is a doll that one of the girls' moms has that she keeps in a china cabinet because it's worth a lot of money, and they call her the Queen. And there is like some ghosty things that happen revolving around that. This one is like about friendship and growing up and learning and coming together, and there's adventure, and it sounds really good. I just don't think it was like quite as well done as I wanted it to be based on like my other readings of Holly Black books. So I really enjoyed it, but I don't think it's going to be like a favorite middle grade of mine. It definitely has more of that middle grade vibe, so I think middle grade kids will really love this, and it was pretty creepy and disturbing. I learned that bone china originally, I don't know if it still is, but originally was made out of like the ashes of bones, which I thought she made up in here, but that's true. That's what makes bone china so strong, so that's creepy and disturbing because the doll is made out of bone china. So this one I think I gave 3 or 3.5 stars. Not my favorite, but enjoyable, especially for this time of year. Next up, I read The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. This one is a story about 3 sisters that went to an island, and they were like very charming and very alluring, and because of that the island decided to drown them for being witches. They thought because their husbands were attracted to them and weird things kind of happened around them, they thought they were witches because this was kind of in that time period. And so because of this, the sisters are angry, and they come back to this island every year and inhabit 3 girls' bodies and drown boys of this island. So sounds really cool. This one came out this year. I was hoping it had like a mermaid aspect to it because they're kind of like in the water and they're on an island. It didn't technically, but it kind of has the siren-y aspect. I need somebody to talk to me about this book because reading it, it has like everything that I liked, and it was very quick to read. I enjoyed my time reading it, but for some reason, I don't know if it was the writing style or just my mood, I felt like about it. Like I felt like this one was more YA than a lot of the books that I read, where it was like more dumbed down a little bit, like the way that the language was. I don't know if I just didn't like the dialogue between the characters. It felt cheesy to me, which is so silly because I read like super ridiculous, cheesy, crazy books. Like I love Twilight, for God's sake. So I don't know why this one I just wasn't into that much. I was really disappointed because I was very excited about it, and I go into books with like an open mind and I'm not like overly judgy. So but this one I just kind of got this like, oh, I don't really care, it's kind of weird. I don't know. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think I gave this one 3 stars, unfortunately. Then the month started to pick up. So the next book I read was The Queens of Fenburn by Kendar Blake. I re-listened to 3 Dark Crowns and 1 Dark Throne on audiobook in preparation for 2 Dark Reigns. It came out in September, and so in between 3 Dark Crowns and 1 Dark Throne I wanted to read Queens of Fenburn, which is two novella stories set in the same world. So if you're not familiar, Three Dot Crowns is about an island that's kind of magical and mystical and kind of separated out from everything else. It's got like a medieval kind of feel about it. It is a matriarchy, so the queens are the ones that rule, and they have triplets. And when they have triplets, the girls have to grow up and are kind of trained in different magical elements, whichever one they possess. And usually there's like a natural, an elementalist, and there is a poisoner, and they all have different skill sets and different things, and they use them when they are of age to kill each other for the throne. That synopsis makes it sound like really intense and hardcore, but this is a much more character-driven universe. There's a lot more politics and things that go on with that, so it doesn't get quite as nitty-gritty until like the later books, until like book 2 and 3. But this one is novella set in that world. So the first novella is the Young Queens, which is about the girls growing up and them growing up together and then getting sent to their islands. And the next novella is about the Oracle Queen. This is set 500 years in the past, about a pinnacle character in the story that is frequently mentioned, and so you get to learn the history of what happened there. And this was amazing. And considering I listened to the other books on audiobook and I loved the audiobook, I was so happy to find that I am just enjoying the story and the writing in general. I am so into it, you guys. It has become my new all-time favorite series, minus Harry Potter, because Harry's always number one. I can't get enough. I love it so much. It's got like a Game of Thronesy vibe where there's just like a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to uncover. There's like enough twists and turns. There's like sympathy, there's morally gray characters, and there's like animals, and there's just, oh, it's so good. So this novella is the best novella bind up, novellas in general, that I have ever read. Usually they are just kind of like, okay. I highly recommend reading this one if you enjoy the, if you're in the series and you've read the first 2 books, definitely jump into this one because it's super good. And then next up, I decided randomly, I think because I want to watch the movie, the Spiderwick Chronicles by Holly Black and Tony Diterlizzi. I read the first 4. I am in the middle of book 5, which is silly because it takes like 20 minutes. These are children's chapter books, kind of. They're very short. They're all like 90 pages. 3 children that inhabit a house that one of their relatives own, and then they find this book called Arthur something Field Guide, and they learn that fairies and magic are real, and they learn a bunch of things about it, and then a bunch of like mischievous things happen, and they meet like trolls and fairies and brownies and all kinds of things and stuff that Holly Black loves to write about. So I read the Field Guide, which is book 1, the Seeing Stone, which is book 2, Lucinda's Secret, which is book 3, and The Ironwood Tree, which is book 4. I loved all of them. They're all like 4, 4.5 stars. This one like kind of proved to me how much I wasn't as into the Doll Bones, because I thought maybe it was just Doll Bones was just that it was a middle grade, but these ones are like kids books and I love them so much. They're like they're so good and fun and magical and mysterious, and like they're really short and the pictures are great, and I loved them so much. These would be like super good for a readathon if you guys are into reading like kids books. I think a story is a good story no matter what. So I was really happy to read these, and I think they have like a sub series that I want to read as well, and I want to watch the movie and do a review on it, but I love them. So my Holly Black love continues. I want to talk about this book. It's the last book that I read this month. Technically, I finished it yesterday on the 1st, but I wanted to put it in here to keep it fresh in my mind. And I don't want to end on like a somewhat sour note, so we're going to talk about it now. I read And the Ocean Was Our Sky by Patrick Ness. This is my first Patrick Ness book. I just thought the cover, sorry, it's the library cover, was so beautiful. I found it actually on Pinterest before I heard anyone else talk about it. Now I've only heard like 2 people talk about it. This one literally just came out like a couple weeks ago. This one is very interesting. So it's technically a retelling of Moby Dick, but really it's like a reversal of Moby Dick. Everyone keeps saying it's told from the whale's perspective, but technically that's not true. It's told as if the humans and the whales were reversed. So instead of like Moby Dick being this big monstrous whale that everyone's trying to find, the whales are actually trying to find Toby Wick, which is like a big monstrous human. So it's not really told from the whale's perspective because it's told as if the whales were the humans in Moby Dick. I hope that makes sense. That was really confusing. But you're getting whales' perspective in here. There are pods of whales and they're hunting humans, and it's like all about like morals and war and devils and like all that kind of stuff. It has the most beautiful illustrations in it. Like, they're just drop dead gorgeous. It's a very short book. It's like 150 pages, but a lot of that are illustrations, so you can read this super fast, and I didn't because I wasn't that into it. I thought it was kind of boring. I thought it was literally the exact same story as Moby Dick, even though I haven't read it from what I know, just told from the whale's perspective. There's a lot of like morals and lessons and things in here about how we shouldn't fight each other, and like I get where it's trying to go and I appreciate the message, but I felt like it was so much like Moby Dick, and I really need to read it to confirm this, that it didn't feel like as smart as I wanted it to feel. Like, the thing I really like about it is that he talks about like devils and how you basically create and make devils in your mind, and that when we give power to our fear, that is worse than what's actually happening. Like, we create our own devils, and so I love that. But I also think that that is from Moby Dick and not from Patrick Ness, so I have to read that to make sure. But I found it was like boring and depressing and just, I don't know, I didn't really like it, and it gave me anxiety. I'm sad. So there are some good things in here. There's definitely like people that are going to love this book, especially like if you like Patrick Ness. Unfortunately, I'm really sad because it's so beautiful and I love whales and ships. I thought it was kind of silly. So I gave this book 2 stars, which might be my first 2-star of the year, sadly. This video is gonna be super long. Okay, then next up I read Uprooted by Naomi Novak. This is one of those books that I've had for like over a year. It's been on my TBR and I keep avoiding it. Everyone loves it. The premise of it I know I'm gonna like, and I keep putting it in my TBR and then I keep putting it off. And finally I was like, you can't do that anymore. There's no reason. And I think part of it's because this is an adult fantasy and I knew it was going to take me longer. And also I just wanted to like save it. I don't know. I do that. And I know I'm not the only one. Like, you want to save it for like a certain time. It's very strange. This one is a loose Beauty and the Beast retelling. It is about a, again, kind of an island, little town, whatever. I can't remember exactly where it's set. It might not be like a real place. There are wizards in this world, and there is someone they call the dragon, which is a really famous wizard that kind of helps the king, and he lives above the town, and every 10 years he comes down and he takes a girl and she goes and has to live with him, and then he releases her after 10 years and goes and picks another girl. And so it's about that loosely and about like a lot of other things. So that's your like Beauty and the Beast kind of a thing. But this one, while it has romance in it, which is lovely, it is more about like politics and magic and sisterhood, and just, it was so freaking amazing. So this one is an adult book, so there are adult themes in here. There's a couple of very, very mild sex scenes, but they're still like adult themed, and there's like violence and things like that. Other than like the minor sex scene, I didn't think that in the rest of it was like inappropriate for young adults. It's written very much like a young adult. This one took me a little bit to get through. I kind of wanted to savor it because of the writing style and the world, and it was beautiful. There are like woods in here that the towns are afraid of. If you go into the woods, then you can get corrupted by the woods, and which could turn you into like a zombie. And there are like so much magic is rich in here, and I just thought it was amazing. The love story is so cute, even though it's pretty minor in the book. I thought it was perfect. I loved it so much because it's not what you think it is, and I loved all the characters. I loved our main character, which I think her name is Agnieszka. It might be Agnieszka, but I think it's and Agnieszka. I loved her. She was sassy and fun and messy and hilarious and clumsy, and I loved that. I loved the woods. I loved the reason for the corrupted woods. I loved the back history. The world building was so good. So this one is somewhat fast-paced. There's like event and then an event and then an event and then an event. So kind of that bothers some people, I guess. I don't know why. I really liked it. The magic system is just there. It's not overly explained, but I really enjoyed that. I thought that the spells and the way that they did them and the way things interwove were so beautiful. This is one of my new all-time favorite books. It was so precious, and I can't wait to read another Naomi Novak book. I just thought it was just so beautifully well done. So I gave this one, of course, 5 stars. And then lastly, I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And guys, I feel so accomplished for Uprooted as well, but I had this last year and I read like 40 pages and then I DNF'd it. I didn't purposely DNF it, I just didn't pick it back up again. I did not enjoy the beginning part of this book because I thought it was boring and it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, but thankfully I pushed through. I read like a chapter a day or every other day this entire month, and I savored it because it's definitely gonna take you longer to read it. It's only 200 pages, but they're very dense and very old-fashioned. I enjoyed this one so much more than I thought it would. If you're new to classics, this is probably not gonna be the one for you. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. It's so gothic and so smart and so heart-wrenching. It's very depressing. It's very sad. Very sad. There's a lot of things that happen that you don't think are going to happen. The way that this goes is not what I expected at all. But if you like those like darker gothic type tales, and this is one for you, there's not as much like action adventure as what movies and things make you seem. It makes you think about a lot of things. It makes you wonder, of course, whether Frankenstein was the monster or whether Frankenstein's monster was the monster. Like just about like the way that humans are and all that kind of stuff. This one tied in so much with science fiction, and it was like one of those like influential books of its time. I'm so glad I read this now because now I know the true story of Frankenstein, and I'm fully prepared to read like retellings and watch movies and like analyze them and love it. It was really good. And I am going to watch like a bunch of Frankenstein retellings and do a video on it hopefully this month because I was like that into it. I thought it was so great, but definitely is a slower read. It's not overly fast paced. I just thought the writing was really good. It has kind of like that, you know, Jane Austen type writing style where it's very whimsical and like lyrical and descriptive, but still really interesting. So I really enjoyed it. I'm very proud of myself that I finished it and then I read it and then I know the story so well now. Okay, you guys, that is all for my September reading wrap up. This is a super long video, sorry about that. And stay tuned tomorrow for my September audiobook wrap up, which was also super excellent. I had such a great month, and I'll see you guys next time on the bright side. Bye!